Welcome, folks. My name is Luna Cisneros. I am the RGV organizer, and I'll be your host for today. Today, we have an important guest all the way from Mexico, and we're going to talk about some really important topics like gender affirming care, HIV treatment, LGBTQIA coalition work, and of course, your own personal journey. We want to let our audience know Planned Parenthood South Texas offers a variety of services like gender affirming care, HIV, STI treatment, prevention, and treatment, primary care. Perra.
It is okay. It's okay to the laugh. No, it's okay.
We want to let our audience know that Planned Parenthood South Texas offers a variety of services. For example, gender affirming care, HIV, STI testing, prevention, and treatment, primary care, and as of 2025, we offer ultrasounds as well, and so many other services. We have 5 clinics here in San Antonio and 2 in the Lower RGV. And today I am honored to be speaking with Ulises, who is the Deputy Director of Mexico's Institution of Health and Wellbeing. Thank you so much for joining us, Ulises.
Thanks for having me, Luna. It is really a pleasure to be here with you, chatting about these issues for the Valley that are really important. I just wanted to note that I am actually from the Valley, like from southern Texas, South Texas, as you said, but from northern Mexico. So I'm from Matamoros. I'm from a borderland, border town. So I'm familiar with the dynamics of Brownsville, McAllen, and so on. But I'm really happy that we're here chatting about this really important issues in Texas right now.
Well, thank you, Ulises. I think it's very important to highlight that being a border town resident.
Border town girls.
Yes, we're border town girls, and it's very unique, the work that happens there and the opportunities of growth and our community that lives down in the RGV, especially in the border town like Matamoros and Brownsville. And I want to start with something that been at the center of so many conversations lately. That would be gender affirming care, right? Right now in the U.S., especially in states like Texas, we've seen a wave of laws restricting access to gender affirming health care. But I want to shift the focus to Mexico. How is Mexico approaching care for transgender and non-binary individuals?
Yeah, well, I think that you cannot separate. This is a transnational matter. Worldwide, we're seeing these far right movements that are conservative and are guided by prejudice in this ideological charge. That this is cultural and that this is a movement, that this is an ideology that wants to pervert the little kids and wants to mutilate, and sorry to say it that way, but that's what they are saying out there. So I don't think that you can divide between countries, because this is something that we are all facing together, all countries. So when we speak of Mexico and how we are dealing with this kind of services and this kind of cultural situation, I think that it's important to remark that. Second of all, I think that our rights were never taken for granted. Let's start there. We didn't have rights before Governor Abbott or Donald Trump. We didn't have full access to the rights. And that's what I want to say about Mexico, that we have made some progressive changes right now in order to guarantee the access to a free identity and to life without violence and violences. But I really believe that we didn't have that at all. So I really like what the first lady of San Antonio said before, that we have nothing to lose, so we just have to keep going, because this is something we can do. But I want to say also that in Mexico we are one of the leader countries in feminicide. How do you say it in English?
Yeah, it would be
Feminicide.
Yeah,
Yeah,
feminicide.
because in Latin America it's femicide, something like that.
Feminicidios, right?
Feminicidio,
Yeah.
but femicidio too. So yeah, we're one of the leader countries in trans femicides, and
for
hate crimes.
And sorry for the viewers who might not understand like that term. What would that term mean?
The definition would be that the ultimate violence against women, and it is that to kill a woman because of gender reasons. But the trans femicide is the definition that it is about women, but also because it is a trans woman.
So it's a targeted attack.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's gender identity and, as the conservatives like to say, biological, right?
Yes.
So we have one clinic in Mexico City that does affirming gender procedures and give services to the communities. But we have a few. We have a few. It is not accessible for all the population in Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be like only in La Ciudad de Mexico, ¿verdad?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean that itself is it's major. Do folks have to pay for these services? How do they go about those services?
They can go there. Like the information is public. You can go there. The staff is trans people. It is operated by trans people, and they have multiple services, such as clinical surgery or hormonal therapies or different kind of procedures. But also, I wanted to say that we in Mexico have the National Survey on Intersexual People. That it's also an effort we are doing to identify the necessities of the people. This is like driven by an official unit, but we also have the National Survey on Sexual Diversity.
Like nationwide?
Yeah, nationwide.
Wow.
And it is recognized by INEGI. It is driven by INEGI. It is done by INEGI, which is the International National Statistics and Information of the country.
Okay.
So that's official information.
Wow. Because I know historically, I mean, yes, trans people have been erased, but as well as like even today, like intersex people are not often
because
ever like
a lot of countries
diagnosed.
has estimations.
Yeah.
Like I do maths and I estimate how much LGBTQ population
people we have, yeah.
But they don't actually have a survey that actually asks people. Of course, the results are underestimated because it says that only 5% of Mexican population is LGBTQ plus, and that's low. But you have the factor that if you ask someone, they wouldn't tell you because they are afraid of getting,
it's like the stigma of like also being queer in Mexico and I think in the Latin community it's very prominent where being queer is just something that is still very taboo, right?
Yep. And right now we have a Texas state in Mexico. That we have right now Jalisco. This state that has Guadalajara in it, but also Puerto Vallarta. Shout out to all the gays. But Jalisco, even though it is known because it is a state that is really diverse and has the gayest parties and the cruisers and all.
Cruising and everything.
Yeah, cruising and everything. Yes. So they elected a governor that is trying to take down the legislation on youth trans youth. Yes. Yeah. So nationwide, it is from a party that's progressive, Movimiento Ciudadano, but his governor is trying to erase trans youth. So it's really happening right now.
As we speak.
Yeah, as we speak.
Do you think those would be some of the biggest challenges that the population in Mexico are especially when it comes to gender affirming care that people are facing to their daily life?
I think the biggest challenge is to survive, because when you are one of the first places where the trans femicide is like, how do you say,
Like prominent, big,
yeah, prominent,
that's
big.
happening.
The life expectancy is 35
Yeah.
years old. So I think surviving is the biggest challenge in Latin America in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very interesting because I have conversations with other people, right? And I've read, also on history, like a lot of the history when it comes to trans folks, like has been erased whenever we were colonized. Because before colonization, of course, all of our indigenous roots, like we had a third gender, right? Like trans people were staying at home, helping with families, like
And we still have
yeah.
pieces of that story, like the before colonial settlements.
Yes.
Because we have the
Mushes.
mushes
Yes.
in Mexico,
Yes.
in Oaxaca, right?
Yeah.
We have this third gender traditional people in Mexico. So we know, as Canada knows with the two spirits people,
Yeah.
as in Thailand they know, as in
Hawaii
the
too.
Arctic, that trans folks were always here with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know in the U.S., particularly like under Trump and Abbott, there's this rhetoric that gender affirming care is like experimental or dangerous, right? These very key words that they use to alarm, right, the far right, which we know isn't true. Do you face any similar misinformation in Mexico, and like how do you even like push against that?
Look, I think that there's need to like a guideline for us to organize
Yeah.
in our communities, because we are losing the public debate in the public arena. And the public arena is the dinner and Christmas. That's public arena. That's not family. It's extended family and friends. And in that arena, we are losing because someone supposedly smarter than us, the activists, that really took the time to do our research about biological basis of sex and gender. They took the time. And what do? We say, nah, I don't need to convince anyone. That war is already won, because we have we are right. We have science on our side. We are so fucking right.
Science backs us up.
Yeah, that we do not have to discuss this, because human rights are not under discussion, right?
Yeah.
We do that because we are like that.
Yeah, we think that way. We process things like that.
Because we say, no, PTSD, no, because I'm trauma, blah, 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 blah. But really, we have to study. We really have to study, because they are prepared.
Yeah. And I also think it's very important also like having these conversations with allies, right? Or like not leaving room for a transphobia to happen.
Yeah.
Or little snarky comments about one's gender presentation. Also, I think that's very important to stick with allies.
And I understand that. I understand that there are no negotiables in any conversation. But really, I ask you, what are the 5 components of sexual orientation?
I mean, it's the emotional, right? The physical, the mental. Would it be?
No.
No? You tell me. You're
Relational.
The teacher. Yes.
Sexual. Dreams. Romantic. Identity. So, if you can dream with a girl, you may be lesbian. But not if you cannot have sex with a girl. Or if you can identify as a lesbian and then have a relationship romantically with the women, with the woman.
Yeah.
So it is complex, but it is not impossible for us to learn our theory and our concepts again. So we can do the battle. We can
So half of the battle would be education.
education,
Of self.
re-education for
Yeah.
us as activists. Another example, what are the 8 components of biological sex?
Girl, you tell me. Shit. I mean,
What are those? Because when someone transphobic and that wants to like to underestimate everything we know about science, and we lose against them, because they are like, no, this chromosome should be blah 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 blah, and then ta 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 ta, and they win.
Yeah.
But when we defy the logic of biological sex, we need to know what is our proposition instead of the binarism of gender.
yeah.
So what is it? So at least 8 components: hormonal, the mind, the chromosomic sex, the genetic sex, the genic sex, and another one, the gonadal sex. Gonadal? Yeah? No. Sexual characters sex.
Yes, sexual characteristics,
primary character
yes.
sex, and secondary character
Characteristics of sex.
sexual.
Yes.
Yes. So at least 7 or 8 components, and those obey to a process, a biological process, a hormonal process, a genetic process, a genic process. So we need to learn from sexology. We need to learn about that, and we have to be prepared to enter this debate prepared.
Yeah.
So we have to
Knowledge.
start winning this
This
debates.
conversation.
Yes,
Of
yes.
course. I mean, and it's clear that gender affirming care is more than just healthcare, right? Like you mentioned, it's about like dignity, access,
Yep.
and the right also to exist freely. While places in Texas are rolling back these rights, it's encouraging to hear how Mexico is working to expand them. But as we've seen, there are still some challenges ahead. So whether you're in Mexico or in the U.S. or anywhere else, the fight for trans healthcare is ongoing.
Yeah.
I just say keep pushing, keep advocating, and most importantly, keep educating yourself and showing up for each other.
Yep.
I want to shift gears a little bit, just a very, very little bit, and talk about another critical healthcare issue, and that would be HIV care, right?
Okay.
So it's another issue that affects the LGBTQIA community, but really, it affects everyone, right? There have been major advancements in prevention and treatment, but access remains a huge issue, especially for marginalized communities.
Yeah.
What's Mexico's approach to expanding access to things like PrEP and PEP?
Well, it's really interesting because quickly, when the last administration with the first administration of this regime, you can say Morena's government, first with President López Obrador and now with the President Sheinbaum, we decided to do something really critical, which was the medicine for HIV, the antiretrovirals.
The arts, right?
Yep. Were from the 80s.
Oh.
What doctors used to prescribe on the 80s.
And that was like a cocktail of medicine. I mean, it could be 10 plus pills a day.
So the first step was to refresh that those medicines, new guidelines were published, etc. And then give the people with HIV in Mexico a better treatment. Then the second of all was led by the director of the Center for Prevention of HIV and AIDS. She advocated and she made it public policy that all the institutions should give PrEP and PEP freely, universal access for all the populations. So now it is an obligation of the state to give freely PrEP and PEP to all people that
I mean,
require it.
that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Especially in somewhere like Mexico. I mean, access to medication, especially to preventative medication like PrEP
Treatment
and
as
PEP.
prevention.
Yes, it's very key to fight also, right, the acquisition of HIV and
of course you
maintaining
guys
the
have
levels.
like more advanced techniques. You already have this,
DoxyPEP, right?
Well, we have DoxyPEP.
Oh, you do too?
As well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I know there's like a lot of like even private.
In that part we are. But yeah, what you said is really important because we have access to that. Like, not access. We offer those services, but only where we have medical infrastructure.
So
In the places like the mountains or the rivers
yes.
We don't have access to those communities. So we need people from those communities to get engaged so they can participate in the health system. But it's clinicalized, it's medicalized.
And it's harder, right? Because this conversation has never happened. I'm pretty sure a lot of us still to this day think that HIV is what it used to be back in the 80s when it's been like much.
You were telling me, like you were seeing this epidemiological changes in the profile of the people that are getting HIV.
Yeah. People used to think, it's only the gay people, right? And now we've seen
sexual workers.
Yeah, commercial sex workers, people who share needles for drugs. But now we've seen an increase that it's just everyone. It's
in Mexico. We have seen it increase in indigenous population and women, cis women, heterosexual cis women.
Yeah.
And migrants as well,
I know here one of the biggest barriers to HIV care is like stigma.
Yep.
People fear discrimination from doctors, from their own communities. How does Mexico's health system addresses that stigma, both inside and outside the medical spaces?
Well, I can say to you that we are doing so much work and training our doctors and nurses and so on, but really we have much to do as you do.
Right.
Like this is not just in Mexico. It's pan-cultural phenomena that people are in Spanish is xenofóbico. I don't know how to say it in English.
The same way, xenophobia.
No, not xenophobia. Xenophobico because of seropositivo is when you are
contagious.
You have HIV.
So now you're.
I don't know the translation, but discrimination against HIV.
People living with HIV.
People living with HIV. Yeah. So we have a lot of that, and the doctors are not an exception, and the nurses as well. So we have a lot of work to do together.
And I think it also comes with the lack of education, right? In public schools or on our day-to-day of knowing exactly how HIV is treated.
In public and private schools, it doesn't matter, but also the
It's ice. Yeah.
Oh my God, I was like, let's go, sorry.
Okay, so the, what was I saying?
Public and private schools when it comes to the
it doesn't matter. What really
HIV.
matters is that in med school, they don't know shit about this. They get anatomy, and they are like, okay, this is the muscle, this is the bones, this is the cardiometabolic system. But then when you get to the clitoris, they don't
Reproductive,
No, not the only reproductive. The pleasure genitalia. Like, you don't know the fucking name of the cells. You don't know the fucking name of the hormones that are involved. You don't know why sexuality is so important for medical treatment. Like, back in time, medical practice, physician practice was, what was important, really important was, how are you sleeping? How are you eating? How is your mobility? Are you exercising? What are you doing? Are you doing effort, etc., etc.? And it didn't matter what illness do you have. It's not about what illness you have. It's about your habits, the principal things that sustain your life. But right now, no one sleeps at night. Everyone's working all the time. No one has recreational time. No one has time to do exercise. No one is sitting well with all the processed food and all. So the best thing a doctor can do is like sit and then, what is your illness? Let me give you a pill. Right? So it is a system that we have to change. Like, it's patriarchal, homophobic, xenophobic, but also focusing the biological things. I think it's a trap. Because if we don't have the whole reflection about the clinical system, we're losing the game. It's not only about LGBTQ treatments. It's about the system,
The whole
as a
system
whole.
itself. Yeah, I mean, here in the U.S., we see government's funding for HIV programs like fluctuate depending on who's in power, right? Is HIV care in Mexico something that feels politically stable, or does it faces the same similar like challenges?
Fortunately, it is a free program, universal program, that it's only going forward. Yeah, it is the right that the people know that it's the right.
They're right, yeah.
They defend it, and they are against every risk that looks upon the sky. Like, really, 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 it is rooted in the Mexican society. Yep, and in the state. We have budget assigned by the Congress, etc. Yep.
Well, I love to hear that. I mean, it warms my heart.
It is possible.
Yeah, it is possible that people can lobby together and know what's their right and make sure that these people don't take it away from them, right? So HIV care has come so far in the last few decades, but as we discussed, as access isn't equal and stigma still remains a huge barrier. It's frustrating to see places like Texas making it harder to access like PrEP and treatment when we have the tools to end the HIV epidemic. But conversations like this reminds us that progress is possible, right? And real change happens when communities demand it. So if you're listening, stay informed, support organizations doing the work, and never stop fighting for healthcare access. Now I really want to talk about the coalition work that is driving that change for the community and health policies. Something I've noticed in places with the best LGBTQIA healthcare policies is that government doesn't act alone. It works closely with community organizations. How does the Institution of Health and Wellbeing collaborate with LGBTQIA plus groups in Mexico?
Well, I might say that the institution has its own processes of making alliances and stuff. I'm not here representing the institution, but I'm talking about Mexico in general. IMSS has its own processes and it's really open to work throughout different areas with different kind of civil society, international, national, and local. But in Mexico, in general, I would like to add another reflection. That would be that we need to take a moment and to rethink collaboration as strategic collaboration. In collaboration because we believe in the same values. Maybe it's not strategic, but we believe in the same. You know, that's something about the US politics that's really interesting. You have this normalized concept as loving, as strategic incidents, right? Because you are pro in those processes. But I think that you could use some pauses to really think about what you are suffering right now. We were talking about like what is happening. Everyone is saying what's happening right now, but what is happening?
What actually can we sit down and think and research what actually is happening, right? Because we throw these statements like, "What's happening in the U.S.? It's terrible." But what really is terrible,
What is
right?
happening?
What really is directly affecting you and the communities and people next to you, right? Like sitting with that.
I think that one name that I can give to what's happening in the U.S. it's biopolitics and necropolitics. That those terms, as strong as they sound,
Yeah.
because the government is deciding who gets to live and how they get to live, and who gets to die and how they die. So if we think about it, they are playing with our bodies, they are playing with our lives, and they are deciding for us to with this banning and this defunding and closing these services, they're denying the possibility to live a life worth living.
Yeah.
And that's necropolitics, and that's biopolitics. So if we do not have a moment to think about that, and what the first lady of San Antonio said before, like,
Just context, we just came from a patron party and we had amazing speakers like Ulises and other amazing speakers. So the First Lady of San Antonio was also there giving a speech, and that's what Ulises is referring to.
And she was saying this, like, we have nothing to lose, so we just gotta get fighting, right? But yes, we are losing.
Yeah.
We are losing so much lives that matters, and they get to decide which life matters, and that we cannot allow. So if that does not get into your bones, to organize and to collaborate, not because of strategy, not because loving, not because any of that.
Not because it looks pretty.
Not, but because they get to choose who dies and who lives.
That should be like the passion driving our coalition efforts and really be.
And with that in mind, the differences are the less.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting and deep point that you've made there. But it's necessary. Sitting down and reflecting. I've heard, especially artists who need space to create. You sometimes have to sit with the thought, sit with the uncomfortableness of it all, and really get to the root of it all. It's also called shadow work, right? For those of us who...
I can hold your finger for emotional support.
Please hold space for me. Hold space for me. But you've got a very, very interesting point and a very, very sensitive point. But moving on to, right, coalition and working together, do you have any success stories and where this kind of coalition work led to real change in Mexico?
I would say yes, and I'll be very brief. We organized and we won elections, and we won the elections in already in 24 Congress, local Congress. So we defend our rights. That's something clear as water.
I know you were mentioning earlier how parteras, right? Midwives, how now can be in hospitals, right? Do you want to talk about a little bit of that?
Yep.
I think
Andrés Manuel, our former president, and Claudia Sheinbaum.
Yes.
They say, "Con el pueblo todo, sin el pueblo nada." All with the people, nothing without the people. And they also say, amor con amor se paga. love is paid with love. So we defend the rights of the poorest, the most vulnerable. The movement defend those rights. And the people respond with their vote, electing the officials that represent their best interest. So no space for the far right. And I would say this, we don't need safe spaces. We need all spaces to be safe. And we don't need safe spaces. We need no space for the right. Right?
Right. You got that right. Yeah, I think it's very interesting seeing, I grew up in Mexico, and seeing the efforts of Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador when I was like, in elementary, middle school, and how he was constantly like not being elected, and he again would run again, losing and win again. And I remember my dad was like tiny. He would be like, I know he's going to win one day. I know he's going to win one day. So now seeing how he did win one day, and now how Mexico has had their first president who's a woman, it's just like, it fills me with so much joy. I'm not a Mexicana, pero I grew up in Mexico, so en mi corazón yo me siento una Mexicana, más por mi papá. And it's amazing to see how in these, 20 years that he's been primero los
pobres.
¿Mande?
Oh, first Andrés Manuel
López Obrador y después Claudia Sheinbaum. Como sigue el movimiento, ¿verdad? Y sé que it was little by little and not giving up and just being raw and honest and being there with your community and hasta que se logró, ¿verdad? Which I love. One of the challenges here in the U.S. is that grassroots LGBTQIA organizations are often shut out of policy-making spaces. How does Mexico ensure that community voices are actually heard?
I think there is actually some conflict of interest in a lot of NGOs, if I may say. Because the people in Mexico or in the States, we live in this democracy. Partisan democracy, right? In your case, you're bipartisan democracy. So you have no option than the other one.
Yes, it's either A or it's B.
Yeah. And I know a lot of you want to change that, like voting for the third party, voting for the ecological, the climate change, or the independent, right? But I'm again back at the idea that it is really important that you organize and win elections, and that the organizations that once said, I am neutral, right? Because a lot of NGOs go with that flag. I am neutral. I don't benefit neither this or that. Well, let's see where that discourse got you into.
Yeah, because not picking sides is picking sides.
Yes. No. So we as centennials, millennials, and other generations, we have to change that. We have to start to get loose or stop being afraid. Stop being afraid of taking party, of being in one side, right? Like the Cold War already happened years ago. There's a lot of history in this country. You have suffered a lot also, but let's pick sides. And I think that's more honest than loving.
Yeah. Sticking to the side that you truly believe, that's you, that represents you, right?
And say it publicly.
Yeah. And you see, I think that was something that we saw a lot with close friends, people that we grew up with. We saw that they never posted like, oh, I voted for this person or this person should win. We didn't see anything. And that gave us a clear light to see, you choose the other side. Yeah.
Lots of surprises.
You chose the other side.
Suddenly everyone was Trump supporter.
All of a sudden. I mean, more than 50% of the population in America.
That's what's really interesting. That's where our efforts should be.
Yeah.
Changing those minds.
Well, one thing is very clear, right? A real change happens when communities come together.
Yep.
The work happening in Mexico to build partnership between government and LGBTQIA organizations is proof that coalition work makes a difference. But as we know, these partnerships don't come without challenge. If you're an advocate, organizer, or someone trying to make a difference, take this as a reminder that your voice matters. Keep pushing for those seats at the table, because when LGBTQIA communities are included in policymaking, lives improves. I want to yes. Now let's take a step back, right? Hay que acomodarnos from all the policy and talk about more personal, right? Because behind every policy, there's a story. So I always think it's very important to understand the person behind the work, because policy doesn't happen in a vacuum. It often it's driven by passion. What inspired you to get into public health, to be exact?
But I don't know, really, honestly. I said before that I am from Matamoros. I'm a border kid. My parents were just middle class workers, really, really, really loving family, dysfunctional as well, as every family. And then I decided that I wanted to do public something. So the easiest way for a small town boy was to get to medicine. So I went to Monterrey. I won a scholarship, and then I went to Monterrey, and I was studying med school 1 year and a half, and then I went to Chiapas to do a project with indigenous population. And then when that happened, I decided that I didn't want it to be in a hospital, but do social projects instead. So the closest thing to social projects was political science, which was what I studied, and international relations, but more like international cooperation, you know.
Yeah.
But I decided because political science was more rooted in reality, and then I took that path. I finished, and then I started working in the Ministry of Health with the first administration of the President López Obrador, and it was really challenging because it was COVID-19, it was Mpox, it was mingles, it was an outbreak of this, an outbreak of that, and suddenly it was really important. Like I was an expert in epidemiological and public health. I suppressed a little bit those years the thing that about inclusion and reproductive and health rights and sexual rights, but it still worked parallel to the state and social movements and our NGOs. And then this administration came and they invited me to be the director of this area that is for inclusion and participation. So I'm back at my
Square one.
at my origins.
Yeah.
And so I am back doing this, and I'm really, really happy to be working in social justice and in health. Health is the excuse. We could be talking about climate change and how not to be a migrant product of the climate change. We could be talking about well-being and scholarships and educational system. It is all the same when you think in systems.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. I mean, not to cut you short or anything, but I've heard through a beautiful cloud out there, little birdie telling me that you were like always top of your class. You've always been a very, very on top of your grades kind of student. So I think it makes sense, right? I think brains like yours.
I'm a nerd.
Yes, we could like dissect them and like use them and put them in a chip in a program so we can like study them, right? Because it's very
really
important,
nice
and especially with these systems that can get very complex, right? And I'm glad that you were able to eloquently, like really talk about how these systems can be broken down and how you can input info into it and reconstruct them little by little.
There's a saying from Paul Preciado. You know Paul Preciado? Paul Preciado is a trans man who does philosophical research, one of the prominent minds of our generation. And he teaches at the New School for Social Research in New York. And he says, for us to get or to approach a better future, we have to think that we are capable of imagining possible futures. Mm-hmm. And we have to be able to imagine different futures. If we are not able, we're not getting into nowhere.
It's the power of manifesting, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to like get into that whole conversation, but manifesting really, it comes from that believing, right? The church even says that if we want to get into and the religion's aspects of Bible, it's like if you had faith, like
it's the
like
utopia conversation.
Yeah.
It only serves you to
keep pushing.
Yeah. But if you don't have a goal,
mm-hmm. What are we going
stop
for?
imagining the horizon.
Yeah, no, you've hit the note right in the head, and it's very, very inspiring to hear a peer, somebody my age, who's done so much work and so much great work in a country like Mexico. I hold Mexico dear to my heart because that's still where my father lives, and that's a place that saw me grow and gave me the opportunity to grow, study its language, study with their people, and really took me open arms. I've always said that Mexico es un lugar que abunda el amor, y que hay personas como tú que salen de un país tan hermoso. Pero I want to wrap as soon as we can, right? But before we go, do you have any final thoughts for our guest?
No. I just wanted to say thank you. You're such a wonderful soul, and it was really joyful to be talking with you. And thank you to all the people that made this possible, to Nubia, to Laura, to Victoria, to Kate, and everyone that I don't know that is working like a lot to make this possible. Thank you for having me, and it's really an honor to be the first guest of this podcast.
Yes. Well, give it up for yourself, Ulises. I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the work that you do, right? And to our listeners, this conversation is just the beginning. Keep learning, keep advocating, and we will see you next time. Adios.